Hello, friends, and welcome to Carnivore Talk, where we talk about how to lose weight, reverse disease, and all the many benefits of a all-natural, carnivore-centric way of eating. Today, I'm happy to have as a guest my friend Geoff Klein. He's one of our cherished, knowledgeable members in our community, and he has had many wonderful benefits from his carnivore diet journey, now lifestyle, and listening to it is certainly going to make your heart rejoice because it certainly has his. So, Geoff, thank you for coming on today. How about you tell us a little about yourself? Where at on this wonderful planet are you? How old are you? Give us a picture of who you are.
Well, thanks, Bob. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the invite and glad to have you as a friend. Also appreciate that glowing introduction. It's rather humbling. Anyways, yeah, I'm Geoff Klein. I'm from Texas. I originally from San Antonio. I now live in Weatherford, Texas, which is about 30 miles due west of Fort Worth, and just got a small place here where we raise a lot of our own animals. I'm 78 years old. I'm a retired aircraft mechanic, and I'm on a tremendous journey of healing with this lifestyle that we call the carnivore diet.
Good. That's very nice to hear. So, you mentioned healing. How would you describe your metabolic health over the years leading up to this stage in your life?
Pretty bad, pretty bad. Uh, when I was younger, I was bulletproof, like most young men. I I served in the U.S. Army Infantry. I was a tough guy. I bounced in bars for 7 years. Uh, I've ridden motorcycles all my life, and I've rodeoed. You name it, I've done everything in the world you could do to beat yourself up. And there comes a time it all starts coming to tell on you. And building up my small farm and everything, I worked hard, and I worked hard at my job, worked hard at my home, and I wore my body out. I wore myself down, and I've had. I think I tried counting it up one time. I've had over 15 different surgeries, some of them major. I've had a total hip replacement. I've had back surgery. I've had hand surgeries. I've had shoulder surgeries. Uh, I've just been a physical wreck. And by the time I was 60, what was it, 61, 62, I developed atrial fibrillation. And uh, I've had IBS for over 30 years. I developed atrial fibrillation and paroxysmal atrial fibrillation, which means I'm not in AFib all the time. It just I would have these severe attacks. I'd have about one a year, and they would put me in the hospital. I'd be in the ICU for a couple of days, uh, and it was it's a scary thing because when it happens, my upper ventricle isn't working; it just flutters, and so I'm getting no blood pumping through my body. So with no blood pumping, I'm getting no oxygen. So I'm suffocating, and so I have to get. Fortunately, we're only about 8 miles from the hospital, so my wife can rush me there pretty quick. I ended up having a cardiac ablation, and the cardiac ablation didn't take. That's where they go in and they burn certain nerves in your heart to build up scar tissue to try to prevent this electrical problem that we have in the heart. And it only works about 60% of the time. And I fell into that 40% category because 1 month to 1 month to the year after the ablation, I had another severe attack. And while I was laying on the gurney and they were in the ER and a team of doctors and nurses were working on me trying to get my heart back into rhythm, I turned to my wife with tears in my eyes and I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And I meant that. I was done. I can't do it. And it was at that time, I couldn't walk. it's 100 yards to my mailbox. I couldn't walk to my mailbox and back without using a walking stick, a hiking staff. Uh, to ride my motorcycle into town and back, which is 14 miles, my back would be sored up. I couldn't take any more long motorcycle rides. Everything about my body hurt. I was a mechanic for 41 years, and I couldn't close my fists on my right hand anymore. I hurt so bad everywhere. And then I developed Crohn's. I was about every other day, I was balling up on the couch, just in agonizing pain. You remember Freddy Krueger with the claws? Uh,
Yeah.
well, I felt like he was ripping at my guts with those claws. It hurt so bad, and I would be balled up in a fetal position for 4 to 5 hours in pain every morning, about every other morning, and then I'd spend the rest of the day on the pot, with just severe diarrhea. And they finally diagnosed me after doing a scoping me upper and lower. They diagnosed me with Crohn's. And my son came home from the oil fields, and he asked me, he said, "Dad, is this going to shorten your life?" And I said, "Yeah, more than likely." Speaking of the AFib, and I said, "Yeah, more than likely. I'm at about 5 to 6 times greater risk at stroke now." And he says, "Would you be willing to listen to me with an open mind and let me talk to you about something?" I said, "Sure." And he introduced me to nutrition, not just carnivore, but nutrition. He didn't just say, "Here, you have to just eat meat and fat." He said, "Listen to these guys, listen to these doctors." And he gave me resources, he gave me research papers, he gave me education. He says, "Look at this and see what you think." And he explained to me about how nutrition works in our bodies. And this is something he had been researching this for years, and I didn't even know it. And it made sense to me. Uh, Years ago, I had been on Atkins for like 10 years, and Atkins works. And I saw this as Atkins personified, Atkins to the next level. And the trouble with Atkins was because it allowed me to have carbs, they started creeping up on me. And then the Atkins foods, with all their junk in them, uh, I started just getting more and more addicted to carbs again. And when my back started going bad and I couldn't work out at the gym anymore, I gave up and I went back to eating a crap diet again. And I ballooned out. Now, my heaviest in my life, I was 236 when I started on Atkins. When I started carnivore, I was 225. So I hadn't gained everything back. So, anyways, so like I said, everything my son said to me made sense. And all the research I did and watching the videos and the guys he gave me were your typical YouTube influencers, Sean Baker, Anthony Chafee, uh, Dr. Barry. And those were the main ones I watched. And then I've expanded my list since then of the doctors I follow. But
Did you jump on it? Did you jump on the carnivore diet right away, or did you have to watch those videos for a while and kind of let that sink in?
I learned. I
Mhm.
learned. I'm Because of my past profession. Uh, I follow instructions. Okay, I'm actually the guy that when he buys a new truck, I read the manual cover to cover. I'm actually that guy. I do read the blueprints. I do read the instructions. I want to do it right because in my business, you had to follow instructions or people died. And so it's just ingrained in me to follow instructions. So I found out everything I could about it and I learned exactly how to do it. And I started keeping notes on my phone. And so by doing this, when I jumped into it, I was pretty knowledgeable. I knew what I was doing. I knew exactly how to get it done. It was just like, well, like Atkins. I read the whole Atkins book before I started Atkins. So I read the whole carnivore book and I looked at, everybody has different opinions. There is no set standard for doing this. So I looked at what everybody had, and I figured out that you had to have a foundation to start with. And I talk about that a lot when I talk to people, that you start with a foundation and you build from there, because everybody's different. It affects everybody differently. There's no cookie cutter way of doing this. And so you start off with the basics and then you work from there. Now, in my case, the basics have worked for me flawlessly. I have not had to adjust anything. I have experimented here and there. And in those experiments, I found out what I could handle and what I couldn't handle, but I've never deviated. I am 465 days, 68 days into this now, and I have never cheated other than an experiment, such as last winter, I experimented with some venison chili because my wife wanted some chili. She loves my chili, and so she wanted some. And I thought, well, I'll try a bowl. And I tried a small bowl, and that led to a second small bowl, and that led to 3 days of misery. So we know chili is off the menu. I will never have chili again, unfortunately. But I don't miss it. I wish I could eat it, but it's not necessary in my diet anymore. Anyways, kind of getting off track there. Uh,
Well, so you
yeah,
said you've been doing this for 400 and some days,
yeah,
and,
yeah, about
so
460, I think.
that's good. That's about as long as I have. So why don't you tell us how it's benefited you? So it must be working if you're still going strong.
Brother, let me tell you what, my first 30 days, and when I started this, let me back up just a little bit. When I started this, I said, I'm going to do this 30 days. Well, at the end of that 30 days, I had already seen so much improvement. It was the inflammation was leaving my body. That was the first thing I noticed. You know, like I said, I couldn't, for the last few years of being a mechanic, I couldn't close my fist on my right hand. I can now close my fist. It doesn't hurt. There's still a little stiffness in these knuckles, but I can do this now. And that was just after 30 days. And then and then I noticed I wasn't in pain anymore in my gut. My Crohn's was gone in 30 days. My IBS was clearing up. By 60 days, I was out walking without a walking stick. I was able to walk a mile. Anyway, so after 90 days, I knew this was my lifestyle. This is how I would eat for the rest of my life because I was feeling so good. So in about 10 months time, total 10 months time, I dropped from 225, and I don't want to make the weight loss the primary issue. It's just a side benefit. The healing is the main issue, but I went from 225 down to 170 in 10 months. I didn't even do that on Adkins. On Adkins, I did 50 pounds in 1 year. So this smoked Adkins right out of the water. Uh, my Crohn's was cured, and my gastroenterologist had me on an all vegetable and all grain, heavy fiber diet, and it was killing me. It was making my Crohn's worse. So my Crohn's was cured. My IBS is cured. I could walk again. My arthritis is gone. I still have some joint pain, but that's damage. That's not from that's not the arthritis. Uh, my back, my back doesn't bother me anymore. That was the main reason why I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand at the sink and wash dishes for 15 minutes. I would have to lean my elbows on the sink to wash dishes. And now I can stand there for an hour and scrub. I can do things I haven't been able to do for years. Uh, it was about 10 months in. I took a motorcycle ride all the way from Weatherford down to New Orleans, Louisiana, and hung out down there for 4 days, uh, and rode back, and my back never bothered me. These were things I thought I was a total wreck. At that time I was a 66-year-old man. I felt like I was an 86-year-old man. Now I'm 68 years old and I feel like I'm 48 years old. It's just a total reversal. Uh, Even here's another wild one. All right. So we know that this heals autoimmune disease. And one of the autoimmune diseases that it helps or cures is skin issues such as acne, psoriasis, eczema, stuff like that. Guess what else it does? Diarrhea. I mean, diarrhea. Dandruff. Wrong D. So even my dandruff is gone. When I went on that trip to New Orleans, because I'm a motorcycle, I'm packing light. I didn't take my dandruff deodorant or dandruff shampoo, and uh, I use the strongest there is. I've had dandruff ever since I grew my hair out. I used to wear a butch haircut when I was a kid. I've had dandruff all my life, and my dandruff is gone. That's in and of itself amazing to me. Uh, I am no longer day blind. I can't see in daylight without putting sunglasses on. My eyes were so sensitive to daylight. When I was in the Army, I had to get a prescription for sunglasses so that I could wear sunglasses in formation. And that is amazing. I had great night vision. I don't anymore because of my age, but back then I had great night vision. I got picked for all night patrols because I didn't need a flashlight. I could see by moonlight easy. And it's only recently that I've had to use a flashlight at night. So anyhow, uh, I'm no longer day blind. I haven't worn sunglasses in 6 months now, except when I ride my bike. When I ride my motorcycle, I got wraparounds and I do wear them. Bugs to the eyes are not fun. Then I, and these glasses here are too weak for wind resistance. They'll
Hmm.
just flatten against my eyeballs. So I have to wear something stiffer. So and then another thing that a lot of people tout on, and I didn't think it was possible. Uh, I'm not sunburning like I used to. I had to slather on the sunscreen. I'm a white boy. Okay. I had my DNA run. I'm 75% German and 25% Scandinavian. I'm so white I glow in the dark. And I don't I don't tan, I burn. And now I'm tanning. I'm not burning anymore. I can go out uh, last week. I was out at my lease, working out at my lease for 6, 7 hours and no sunscreen, never burnt. I was out working on fence uh, uh, the day after. I was out in direct sunlight all day long, never burnt. Now if I've got absolute white skin exposed, yeah, I'll get a little burn, but it it lasts for a couple of days and then it's gone and it doesn't blister, it doesn't peel. And I couldn't ride my motorcycle into town and back without putting sunblock on my nose. Otherwise, my nose and my ears would burn. That doesn't happen anymore. That's amazing to me. Now, that's the good things that's happened. I think I counted up at one time. I've had 16 different things that have been cured or fixed in me. But the most amazing is my atrial fibrillation. So about about 7, 8, 10 months, or no, earlier than that, 3 or 4 months, I was on a one of my heart medications was metropolol, and it was regulating my blood pressure. Well, my blood pressure came down naturally due to carnivore, due to eating right, eating a proper human diet. It came down naturally so low that the metropolol was taking me down too low. And I was on a walk one day, and I almost passed out. I had to lay down in a bar ditch and elevate my feet because I was fixing to pass out, and one of the neighbors had to come take me home. My blood pressure was, I think, 78 over 54 or something like that. I took a picture of it and sent it to my cardiologist, and
Wow,
he
that
said,
is low.
"Yeah," he said, "Get off the metropolol now." And so I quit the metropolol, but I was still on flecainide. Well, about 3 or 4 months after that, I had an appointment with my cardiologist, and he looked at what had been happening to my body, and he checked my most recent results from the EKG and all, and he says, "I'm going to cut your flecainide in half." you're doing so good. And he says, in 6 months, we'll talk again. And you may, if you keep this up, you may be able to get off the medication. Well, 6 months later, uh, he took me off the medication. And he said, and this is his words, quote unquote, you have done more to heal yourself than anything I could have done. He says, I'm going to see you in another 6 months. And if you are still doing this good, then I'm going to drop you as a patient.
Wow. So right now you're on zero
Zero.
medication for
Zero.
that paroxysmal atrial fibrillation.
Exactly. And today I had an appointment with my sleep apnea doctor. My sleep apnea, which I wasn't diagnosed with that until I developed AFib, because when you get AFib, they start looking at those things. And sleep apnea is a contributor, they believe, along with alcohol and stress and stuff like that, is a contributor to AFib. Well, so my sleep apnea, I asked to be retested, and my numbers came down from a 22, which is severe, moderate severe, to an 11, which is mild. And with that, they told me I could get off my BiPAP machine, and they fitted me with a dental device that adjusts my jaw at night to open up my airway. And with that dental device, I've now dropped down to a 4, which is basically no sleep apnea. And so they're going to make one adjustment to my dental device and move it out to another millimeter. And then in 4 months, they'll sleep test me again. And if everything's good, then I'm golden on my sleep apnea. These are the benefits that Carnivore has done for me, the healing that it's done for me. I'm happy for the weight loss, but I'm more proud of that healing that it's done. When you become metabolically healthy, everything gets fixed. It's just amazing. And I know not everybody has those results. I haven't had all the results everybody else has had. I believe you mentioned one time you've had skin tags fall off. Uh, I haven't. I still have skin tags. So, oh, no big deal. But I've still
Yeah.
got it. So that hasn't done it. My physiology has not allowed those.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it won't happen in time.
I
And
should
that's,
probably,
people
I
don't
should,
give the diet time.
yeah, I should probably clarify. So like they would grow and then I would like use toenail clippers and cut them off and they would bleed really bad, like bleed endlessly. And so since I've been on the carnivore diet, what happens now is they have not tried to grow back. So as they would come in, I'd cut them off myself because I didn't like it. They were visible even when I wore a shirt, and so I would cut them off, and now they don't grow back anymore. So that's a wonderful benefit that I've had. But then
Well, I
you've
suppose I
mentioned
could try cutting mine, but yeah, I'm not
you
into
mentioned
self
not
cutting.
getting you mentioned not getting sunburn.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty envious of that because I still burn, but usually not anywhere on my body, but up here where I've got no protection at all.
right.
I still have to watch the top of my scalp, but I'm pretty good about nowhere else gets burned at all. Just right up here if I don't cover that up.
Well, and in time, if you could just allow it to get a little sun here and there, it may just tan up enough. And see, that's another thing. Something I read, and it makes sense to me, is when we wear sunglasses, it turns off our vitamin D receptors in our body. And so by not wearing sunglasses, that has allowed my vitamin D to produce the melatonin that's needed to protect my skin. And so that's something to think about if you wear sunglasses outside.
Oh, that's
You
interesting. These are transition lenses, so they
yeah,
become sunglasses when they get
look
exposed to light.
look into that,
Yeah.
and I'll see if I can't send you something sometime on that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've read that's actually a thing. I don't understand all the science behind it, and I don't really know that it's true. But I know since I have quit wearing sunglasses, I have been able to stay out in the sun much longer.
No,
And
that's good to
trust
know.
me, in Texas, we got sun.
Yeah. That's good to know because my vitamin D is typically low unless I supplement. So I do supplement to keep it up.
Yeah,
So, mhm.
and I supplement as well. That's I supplement with vitamin D. I supplement with CoQ10 for my heart. Uh, I don't want to say my AFib is cured, but I haven't had an attack in over a year and a half now, where I was having heart palpitations or PVCs 8, 6, 7, 8, 10 times a day. I'm now not having any. I feel nothing.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The only thing I have is my heart rate is around in the 80s, whereas before when I was on flecainide it was in the 60s, but now it's in the 80s. When I'm out in the sun, I'm working hard outside and you know, and I'm working in 104, 105, 106-degree temperatures all day when I'm outside working. Uh, my heart rate will get up there. It'll get up there 100, 110, something like that. So yeah, I got to back off a little bit. You know, it's not. I'm not as tough as I used to be. Uh, Back in my younger days, I'd get out there and weld on fence when it was 106. You know, I could strike that 4,000-degree arc and run it all day long. Never bothered me, as long as I had water to drink. So yeah, 68 years old, I'm not as tough as I used to be, but I can still get out there. I can still get out there and hang with some of them young pups. But and that's all due to this way of eating now that we do.
That's wonderful. So you've talked about no more Crohn's, no more paroxysmal atrial fibrillation, no more sunburn, no more day blindness. Is there anything you can think of that you may have left out? You said you at one time you could count up to 16 benefits.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've got them written down on this phone, and I'm using this phone right now, so I can't go to them.
That's
So
okay.
yeah, and uh, oh, here's a benefit, and it's not a cure, it's not a fix, it's just a result. I can clip my toenails again. I know that seems weird. I know that seems weird, but because of my back, because of my arthritis and my belly, I haven't been able to clip my toenails in like 5 or 6 years. My wife's had to do it, and that's always been kind of an embarrassment for me. You know, for somebody to have to clip my toenails, that just seems terrible. And
Humbling.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and so surprisingly enough, now I can clip my toenails, and because I don't have that big belly, I don't have the restriction in my body from all the inflammation. That's actually a pretty cool thing. I'm enjoying
Mhm.
that. You know, so yeah, uh, I've I can't think. I know there's more stuff that's been helped. I can't come up with all of them right off the top of my head. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's okay. So, but you've clearly benefited, as do most people that we know that try this lifestyle. You know, they see it almost seems when you're that unhealthy and you have all those things reversed, it seems almost miraculous. Not that the
it
diet's a
is.
miracle, but it feels that way when you feel like you've got one foot in the grave and the other one on a set of roller skates. So,
Oh, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. I've you know one of the reasons I retired when I did, uh, it was during the shall we say COVID debacle, uh, and we had a guy on the shop floor, friend of mine I'd worked with for over 20 years. I knew him well. He got an argument with his boss, and now this guy was way out of shape. He was very obese. He got in a bad argument with his boss, and his boss they got into a fight, and the stress levels got to Nick, and he ended up dropping dead of a heart attack right there on the shop floor, and we couldn't save him. And I said, "That's not going to be me. I'm not doing that." I was already in such bad shape. My crew, I ran a crew, and my crew, or I oversaw a crew. I didn't run them. I oversaw a crew, and uh, they were always watching out for me because they knew I had a bad heart. And when I saw Nick go down and when he died and we couldn't save him, I said that ain't gonna happen to me. And I went home that night and I got a hold of my financial counselor and I says, when can I retire? And she said, when do you want to retire? I said, tomorrow or yesterday. And she says, you can go anytime you want. You're financially stable. And I asked my wife, what do you think? And she says, whatever you want, whatever's best for you. And I went in the next day and went up to my boss and I gave him a 90-day notice because I was going to have to train somebody to replace me. So I gave him a 90-day notice. And uh, after that 90 days, I walked out of that place because I did not want to die there because I felt like I was going to die one of these days fairly shortly. And now I don't feel that way. I do not feel that way. I feel like I've got a long life ahead of me, which is good because I got 10 grandkids and two great grandkids, and I want to be around to see some of them grow up.
So you mentioned your family. So you've mentioned a wife and you've mentioned a son, not lots of grandkids. So I don't know how many children do you have. Um, but you mentioned your son introduced this to you. Does he also practice this way of eating?
Yes and no. He's in and out of it. Uh, he works in the oil fields. He's a wireline engineer in the oil fields. And so he is gone at a minimum of 2 weeks and then home for like 3 or 4 days and then back out in the field for 2 weeks. And so it's tough for him to eat carnivore when he's away from home that much. But he does what he can do.
Hmm.
Uh, so uh, right now, he got off of it for a while. He strayed away, started putting on weight. His back, he hurt his back, and his back's really been bothering him bad. And we were talking about it, and I said, well, son, you know the solution. You're the one that taught me the solution. So you know what to do. It's up to you. And he says, yeah, I know. And he says, I'm getting back to it. I said, okay, that's good. Now, my wife is not going to give up certain carbs. She is, I do most of the cooking. Now that I'm retired, I love to cook. And I'm told I'm a pretty decent cook. And so my wife is more than happy to let me do the cooking. And she's more than happy to clean the kitchen if she don't have to cook. And we got a pretty good arrangement on that.
Hmm.
So she accepts and believes everything about the carnivore, but she is she is and has always been very healthy, very metabolically healthy, very very much a hard worker. She's been a horse trainer. She's been breaking broncs all her life. She's retired now from training, but she's always worked hard, and she's always been healthy. She's never had any issues of any kind except broken bones from the horses. And so she doesn't see a need to give up certain things. She eats primarily meat and fats like I do. She eats what I eat, but she will have her spinach smoothie. The oxalates don't bother her yet. She is going to indulge in some bluebell ice cream once in a while. And I make Kiltz's ice cream for
Me too.
myself.
Hmm.
It's good stuff. It ain't bluebell, but it's good stuff. So uh, she will, what is it? If we're if there's a birthday party, she's going to have a piece of cake. But she on a daily basis she eats mainly what I eat, and so she's at best ketovore, you might say. She does have some carbs, but she keeps it to a minimum.
Hmm.
My father-in-law passed away a month ago, and we've moved my mother-in-law in with us, which is a good thing. I love my mother-in-law. She's a great, great lady, very inspirational. She is uh, got a little dementia, a little slow, I should say. She had a UTI and kidney stones, had to have surgery, and we've taken her in. Two knee replacements, walks with a walker. So we asked her, would you be willing to go on a specific diet to help you with your dementia and your brain fog and help your strength and your metabolism? And she said, sure, anything that'll help. She said, I hate being this way. And so we've got her eating a ketovore diet. We still let her have a little bit of the good stuff now and then, uh, but she's willing to let us control her diet, and she has been benefiting by leaps and bounds. Uh, we're carrying on conversations now that we couldn't carry on before. We don't have to help her out of her chair. She still has to use a walker, but she's purposely putting her walker away from her when she sits down, so that she has to walk to it and to use it. Um, and I'm PTing her with resistance bands to get her strength up. So she's coming along great. I have a daughter who knows and understands and believes in the carnivore diet, but ain't willing to give up the 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 stuff because she's got kids. And like she says, I feel kind of bad about restricting kids from eating, the fun stuff. I said, well, that's your choice. You're her mother, and the kids are active and they're doing great. So as long as nobody has any medical issues, she's gonna keep doing what she does. Uh, that's her choice. So I'm the only one that's really a strict carnivore.
Yeah, that's okay. Some people thrive very well on ketovore. Like you said, your mother-in-law is already experiencing benefits. That's why I always talk about a carnivore-centric diet.
Right,
I believe it should be meat heavy, and for some people that might mean meat only, but it
right.
doesn't necessarily have to be that for everyone. So,
Yeah, and I do. As Dr. Barry says, I do like 98% meat only. Uh, I will indulge in some spice once in a while, but I don't make a habit of it. Uh, I I do dairy, which depending on what camp you're in, some believe it's not carnivore, some believe it is carnivore. Uh, I use it in very, very limited quantities. I make my own yogurt and it's hard to resist, but I do resist it. I eat maybe one small bowl a week and that's it. Uh, for a while, I got off of it for a couple of months because I was getting too addicted to it. And now I'm just controlling it. But I will admit the other night, may the carnivore gods forgive me. I did eat some jalapenos the other night. We went to go visit some friends of ours, and they grow a nice garden, and they had a large abundance of jalapenos. And being a Texan, I love my jalapenos. And so I also know this is one fruit that I can eat, and it does not affect me in any way. So that doesn't mean I'm going to eat it all the time. But I did bring those peppers home, and I made uh, crawfish stuffed jalapeno poppers, bacon wrapped, and I
mm,
smoked them out on my smoker. And
sounds delicious.
yeah, I can indulge in something like that once in a while. I just don't make a habit of it. Most of the time, on a daily basis, it's meat, eggs, maybe a little cheese, but everything is meat with emphasis to the fat. I cook everything in tallow, ghee, butter, or lard or bacon fat. I make my own tallow. Uh, Almost all the meat I eat, I raise myself or I hunt and kill myself. Uh, I will have to buy some store bought meat once in a while. The wife bring home a roast chicken once in a while. I've got chickens. I raise my own eggs. I but I don't want to eat my own chickens unless I have to. Uh, if uh, if if we let them hatch out some eggs and some of them turn out to be roosters, we're going to eat them. So uh, yeah, I stick mostly to meat.
Yeah, me too. So I'm okay with dairy. Dairy doesn't bother me at all. I use a little bit of seasoning, so like I use mostly Himalayan salt, but I also sprinkle a little garlic powder and onion powder on certain dishes just for some
Right.
flavor. Jalapenos don't bother me, and so maybe once a week we have a Mexican themed night, and so I have a carnivore meal, and I might have some banana peppers or jalapeno peppers on there with it, maybe even a little salsa just on that night. But yeah, like probably Yeah, 98% for me, maybe 96, 95% carnivore most of the time. So, and
Which,
then,
you know, and that's one of those things. If it's working for you, that's great.
mhm.
You know, and that's what I try to emphasize to people is you don't have to be dogmatic about this. It's not a religion. You know, you can eat certain things, but what you have to do is find out what those certain things are. Like I mentioned earlier, I tried chili once. I can't do chili. It's off the menu. I'll never touch it again. This is an elimination diet, and I found that that has to be eliminated. But what I have found is my desire for certain foods is gone. I don't desire these things. I desire nutritious food, and that nutritious food is meat with fat, and that's it. I don't. I don't have any sugar. I don't have any artificial sweeteners. I don't do. I do nothing but water. Uh, so the desire to do these things is absolutely gone. So it's a big treat if I have some jalapeno poppers.
Mhm.
It's a big treat for me, but I don't crave them. And so it's easy for me to say, well, I don't want that. My daughter makes the best cheesecake in the world. Absolutely. I'll put hers up against anybody. And it's tradition for her birthday. She makes somebody a cheesecake. And uh, I said, well, you know, baby, I'm not going to, I'm not going to cheat. So, you know, give my cheesecake to everybody else and let them have fun. Now, if you can come up with a carnivore cheesecake, you bring it on. I'll eat it. But until then, I'm not touching it because I don't want the sugar. You know, the sugar, the seed oils, those are the bad things. The highly processed foods, the grains, those are horrible. I will not allow them in my life, period. They are not to be allowed. I can see having certain vegetables that are low in oxalates that are not starchy. I can see somebody having those. I'm not going to poo-poo anybody for eating something like that. You know, if it works for them and it doesn't bother them, enjoy them. If you enjoy them, but I have found that for the most part, I eat for my nutrition. I don't eat for pleasure anymore. I enjoy what I eat. You've seen the food that I make. I make good food, and I make a large variety of food, uh, but it's all centered around fat and meat.
Yeah, he actually makes a lot of wonderful food. We've got a thread over on the forum where he posts pictures almost every day of what he's been cooking or grilling or smoking, and it's definitely mouth-watering. So if you want to see what he cooks, you can come over and check that out.
Yeah, you ever get down here, I'll throw a brisket on the smoker for you, maybe some ribs.
Absolutely, you're giving me a reason to go to Texas.
You're welcome anytime, Bob.
Yeah. All right. Well, so thank you for coming online and joining us here and sharing this wonderful news that you've had with the carnivore diet with all of us today. If people wanted to find you online and ask you questions, or just continue to follow your story and your progress, because we'd like to see, in 6 months, will you be dropped as a patient by the cardiologist? That'll be exciting. You know,
Maybe we'll have
uh,
another interview then.
yeah, that would be
I'll
great.
definitely
So
let you know about it online.
yeah, so where could if people wanted to continue to follow your story, where could they find you?
Well, I don't have YouTube or Instagram or anything like that. I'm not a techno nerd. I've got a phone and that's all I've got. But I am on several talk forums. I'm on your talk forum, of course, Carnivore Talk. Over there, you'll know me as Geezy. Uh, if you'd like, I'll tell you why Geezy is my nickname. That's the nickname my wife gave me. It's also my road name uh,
Hmm.
when I'm on my motorcycle. So I'm watching uh, an old rerun of Easy Rider. One day, my wife comes walking through the living room and she looks to see what's on TV, and she sees that it's Easy Rider, and she looks at me and she says, "You're not Easy Rider, you're Geezy Rider." And Geezy's been my name ever since, and that's why I use Geezy on your on your talk forum. So, anyways, Carnivore Talk, I'm Geezy over there, and then I'm also on Kiltz's Mighty Tribe. I'm on there just about every day. And over there, I just go by my regular name, Geoffrey Klein. So that's the only place I can be found. Well, there's another talk forum I get on once in a while. Uh,
I've seen you
uh,
over on ketogenic forums too.
Ketogenic forums. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was having a
Hmm.
brain fart there. Couldn't remember it. So yeah, ketogenic forums. We're all on. You and me are all on the same. That's
Hmm.
how we got to
Yeah.
know each other, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the places where I'm at. Uh,
Okay. I was just thinking, last thought that came to my head was you mentioned not being able to ride your bike, your motorcycle, because of the back pain and everything. And that is something that you clearly enjoyed doing all your life, and you probably thought you weren't going to be able to do that much longer because of your back pain. And now you can get on there and ride and ride and ride and ride. And that has to be a wonderful feeling, knowing that
oh, it's
your
absolutely.
motorcycle days are
Yeah,
still going strong.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I learned. My dad put me on his motorcycle and taught me to ride when I was 12 years old, and I've never looked back. Uh, I've been riding a long time, and I've gone through a lot of motorcycles, and I ride every chance I get. Uh, Today, when I had my appointment with my sleep apnea doctor, I make my appointments early in the morning just so I can take that cool ride in the morning.
Hmm. All right. Well, thank you again, Geoff, for coming on. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing more progress from you later on down the road.
Sure thing, Bob. And I appreciate being here. I appreciate you inviting me, sir.
All right. And for those who are listening, you can find support on your personal health journey here on this channel and from the many wonderful community members, including Geoff Klein, Geezy here, over at carnivoretalk.com. So please, if you could, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share this video, especially with anyone who may be skeptical or who have had atrial fibrillation as well and might be inspired by Geoff's testimony. And if you too have had success on a carnivore diet or a carnivore ish diet, please reach out to me in the show notes below so we can get you on the channel and enjoy some carnivore talk with you and me and hear your story and share that with others as well. My name is Bob, and I'll see you soon.